There's a clandestine organization that has been created in England, and it's bankrolled by British taxpayers. And their aim is to, make you think the way they want you to think, right? And what they want you to think is that all wars that make them a lot of money are good wars. Boy, that's surprising, right? Not. All right. It's ironically called, believe it or not, the Integrity Initiative, even though it seems to be extremely short on integrity. Its aim is to influence public opinion here in the United States, to get into your head. They also want to do it in other places, training clusters of pundits, the people who go on camera, and then cultivating relationships with media figures and anchors and news presenters and academics. NRS correspondent Michele Greenstein has been looking into this group, and she's joining us now at the wall to share with us what she's learned. Michele, what you got?
Well, Rick, what a name for something that's actually a British government-funded military intelligence operation. The Integrity Initiative was set up in 2015, and it calls itself a network dedicated to revealing and combating propaganda and disinformation. That is their stated goal. Who could be against that, right? Now, this organization, disguised as a charity, by the way, wants to make sure policymakers and what they call opinion makers in Europe and North America see Russia as a threat. They are literally manipulating the political process, all under the guise of protecting you, the viewer, from disinformation. This is psychological warfare, and it's financed mainly by this guy, British intelligence, the British Foreign Office, its Ministry of Defense, and NATO. Okay, here's how the sausage is made. They create what they call clusters of journalists, pundits, academics, anyone who can peddle their narrative and influence public opinion. They have clusters in Spain, France, Germany, all over Europe. And British intelligence is literally meddling in the affairs of its NATO allies. And guess what? They claim to have an office right here in Washington, D.C. You want to know how they measure their success? Well, in a hacked document that showed a bid for funding from the UK government, they outlined their performance indicators. Here they are right here. Right there at the top, you will see a tougher stance in government policy towards Russia. And I'll leave it to you, the viewer, to decide whether or not they've been effective. The Trump administration has leveled multiple rounds of sanctions, NATO expansion, the expulsion of Russian diplomats, and these documents reveal that they've established a network right here in the U.S. I'll give you one example. Todd Leventhal, a member of the U.S. cluster, worked at the State Department's Global Engagement Center. Now, Leventhal was paid the equivalent of $76,000 by this group. And it gets weirder. You've got characters like Simon Bracy Lane, who, fresh off being an unpaid volunteer organizer for the Bernie campaign, appears in these docs as an employee of this military-backed anti-Russia propaganda farm. And it's not just NATO allies. They're also smearing their own opposition leader, Jeremy Corbyn. The UK government is attacking its own opposition, secretly. Rick, last night you spoke with investigative journalist Max Blumenthal, who's written quite extensively on this operation. So let's hear what he had to say.
We've learned about conferences that none of us other journalists knew about with major British journalists. There was recently a conference in Seattle with so-called disinformation experts, and this is all happening under the table with the Integrity Initiative to coordinate their message. And again, the message is permanent war, conflict with Russia, and smear the crap out of anyone who gets in your way. There is a war for the minds of American media consumers, and there is a war on their minds, and it's not just being fought through the media. There are tentacles going into the media from military intelligence cutouts, and we wouldn't know this unless these communications had been hacked and leaked.
Remember Operation Mockingbird, when over 400 American journalists were found to be working for the CIA? Well, it looks like Western intelligence has upped their game. The Integrity Initiative wants to build, quote, a younger generation of Russia watchers. How ironic. And this, of course, begs the question of what other so-called anti-disinformation campaigns, in effect, indoctrinating a new generation of anti-Russia and pro-military intelligence complex news consumers are also being bankrolled by Western governments. Rick, back to you.
Yeah, good report. Thanks so much for staying on top of this for us, Michele.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.